الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطاهرين ما دام ما في السماوات والأرضين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم إنا نسألك علما ينفعنا اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا وعملا متقبلا وشفاء من كل داء وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
Alhamdulillah, we thank and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of His blessings that He has bestowed upon us. And we beseech Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in those blessings.
Amen.
We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessing of Islam. وَكَفَى بِهَا النِّعْمَةِ, and sufficient is as a blessing. And one of the definitions, or the definition for Islam is al-inqiyad al-zahir, the apparent submission to the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah has a set of laws, there's a set of do's and a set of don'ts. If you conform to those set of do's and don'ts, it makes you a Muslim, when you submit to the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is comprehensive. Comprehensive, in other words, from A to Z. Any aspect of our life, there is a law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that applies. Actually, if you look at what Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jinani says in his opening sermon of Futuhatul Ghaib, leave alone every circumstances, he says that every moment that one of three things apply to you. There's a law of Allah that must be fulfilled. As we are sitting here, there's a law of Allah that must be fulfilled. If not, there's a prohibition that must be respected and steered clear from. Or if there's no command, there's no prohibition, then there's a decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you and I need to be pleased with. So Islam covers all laws, even on all laws. At every moment we are to be in a state of Allah consciousness and so forth. Today we continue, we had an exhaustive, or rather exhaustive list in terms of the don'ts. Not don'ts in terms of law, but in terms of spiritual law. Because the spiritual law also has rules. They say fiqh al-zahir, the laws that relate to the external acts. And there is the fiqh al-batin, there's laws that relate to our internal dynamic, ourselves. So like externally, there's things that you must do and things you mustn't do. Likewise, when it comes to the condition of our heart, there are qualities, actions, if you wanted to, of the heart that you must do. And there are certain actions or omissions, rather, things that you must not do. So we did the list in terms of don'ts, and it was quite an exhaustive list. Last week, alhamdulillah, we completed those, and today we go on to the list of do's. So I think we understand the order as well, in terms of first ridding ourselves of lesser qualities, and then embellishing ourselves with the better qualities. And after the list is just to run through, and then the author will go into detail bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the issues that is mentioned now is Amr bil Ma'ruf. It's not the first one, but the ones that comes to mind. And I think it's also important for us to realize that the laws of Islam are very relevant and cutting edge. One of the qualities mentioned here is the ability to call towards good and forbid from evil. That is considered to be a praiseworthy quality. But obviously, that needs to be done with wisdom. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah. So my intention is to say what I'm going to say now with wisdom. And if there's a lack in terms of the wisdom, please overlook me and forgive me for that. I find that we have a nice easy environment in the masjid when it comes to our elders and our youngsters. So we have a lot of youngsters in the masjid. But there's a law of Allah that needs to be maintained in relation to the youngsters in the masjid. So we shouldn't be a masjid that does not welcome the youngsters. When youngsters enter into the masjid, then there's a certain protocol and decorum that must be maintained to maintain the overall sanctity of the masjid. It's very important. And I'm encouraged by the fact that many of our spiritual mentors, who are people of goodwill, at times when children run amok in the masjid, then they take into task. They say the masjid is a place for worship, and And the children can't run around to that extent that it compromises the worship of others. So I think there's a degree of maybe research that must be done in terms of determining what is the balance. Because you don't want to close the door, then the kids don't come to the masjid, then we don't hear them. We are all peaceful in our salah, but the next generation is compromised. We don't want that. That's the one extreme. The other extreme is that it's open, free for all, open door policy, that no matter what. And myself, I consider myself as a very tolerable person. But sometimes when I'm making salah, because of my weakness, it's a disturbance. So even if we address the issue, not because, before the companions said they had such hudu when they made the salah, if they needed to go and undergo an operation, they would say, no problem, you don't need to give me an anesthetic. I'm going to start my salah, and then you start the operation. And when they finish the salah, salam, so you finish cut off my leg or whatever you need to do, because they wouldn't even notice. So there must be a sort of situation whereby how we can moderate. I'm not talking to our masjid specifically. I'm talking to masajid in general. And people talk about, even the parent who bring the kid, they want to know what is the right thing to do. What does Allah say in this particular regard? So we have development. Your child is 0. From 0 to 7 is a tifl. But when we become 7 is mumayyiz. The child in and of themselves is able to distinguish more or less between right and wrong, what is beneficial and what's harmful. And they're able to go to make istinja themselves. So now you have a child that is mumayyiz, the child can listen. The child will know when sitting, when making a noise is okay, when keeping quiet is required, and so forth. So, there are general measures that can be used. My personal preference is that bring your child to the masjid all of the time. So you bring your child to the masjid, now he's small, but you see now he's okay. Second time you bring the child to the masjid, other children, they run a racket. So now you know, okay, look here, maybe I must nurture him in that particular way so that they can develop into a way where they come to the masjid and they know how to manage themselves. So I think because many of my friends, they have young children, and they're on the jihad of the masjid must be open for all the kids. But again, we can't have the one limit where the musallun, their salah is compromised. On the other hand, we can't have the process that no kids must be allowed in the masjid, because what's going to happen with our future generations? So there's a masala ijtihadiyya for us at least, because we haven't read that much into that. We must, I think, read a bit more about and create a nice ilmi, workable situation that we can, when it comes to our kids, and we can also advise beautifully in relation to others' kids in terms of the masjid, so that we facilitate on the one hand for the youngsters to fill the masjid and the sounds of the beautiful voices to fill the masjid, whilst at the same time also not compromising the sanctity of the masjid. And if you look at many things at the masjid, I can't sell things in the masjid. I can't make an announcement for something which I lost. Did anybody find my thing? And then this is a different thing. If I found something, and then I say whoever lost the item can come to me. And there's another thing, if I make an announcement, did anybody see my thing? And generally what we do is there's a phone there, anybody who lost their phone can come to the front. That's a different hukam, as opposed to a person, I lost something. And so, but we see all of these things driven by that the masjid is a sacred space. And there's a degree of sanctity that is attached to it. So how can we have both of those objectives maintained when it comes to the masjid? I'm sure you saw that thing about the Turkish proverb of when you don't hear kids in the masjid, must get worried. So that's the one side of things. So, and always the issue about the Islamic approach is always وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. I was at the old masjid, and before we came there, kids never used to play in the masjid. And because they have an afternoon madrasa, the masjid is like known in Buka, kids can come and they can. But myself also as the principal of the madrasa, and chandeliers were broken in the masjid already because of the rugby and the soccer. And that's a bit. If the committee complained to me, I said, you're right. I mean, they can't sue the kid. You can, like run around the masjid and so forth, but when the windows start breaking and the chandeliers start breaking, and you can't tell me that, the kids the kids must be allowed to be in the masjid. So it's the balance really that, so Allah grant us the tawfiq. And for us, the elder ones, have a little bit of sabr and patience, if there's place in our heart, there's place in our masjid. So even sometimes though it may be a little bit, you get unnerved or something, have a little bit of patience, sabr. But also the one side, but if it's your child in the masjid, you must have care. Next time it's a bit too much of a disturbance. Let me rather not bring him to the masjid, let him get a year older, maybe 6 months older, and like that. And inshallah, in that way we'll create what Allah grant us the tawfiq. وأما الأخلاق الحسنة فحاول بعض جمعها كما في المناوي فقال. So as to the good qualities that we should embellish ourselves with, some of the ulama have attempted to gather them all and made like a list. So Imam al-Munawi, he says the following. The first one is, and he's going to start now with alif. So the first one would be al-ihsan. Ihsan is to be good to others. So we're just going to run through the list because it's a long list, and I don't want to spend like 2-3 lessons like we did the last time. But some of these lessons, I was thinking that some of these qualities you'd find within yourself. If you find them within yourself, then you should praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. And if you don't, we should make an effort to acquire it. But we shouldn't fall into the trap of, the good qualities are mentioned that are found in ourselves. Then we celebrate that and that's enough for us. No, we should try to get all of the qualities. There's some qualities that you have and just very naturally. But there's certain other good qualities which you don't have an affinity with. It is really those qualities that we must make an effort to bring within ourselves, inshallah. The second one is wal-ikhlas, sincerity. And they'll go through the definition later on, but just for now, to ihsan, to do good to others, ikhlas, to be sincere, wal-ithar. You will notice that the beginning is all hamza, alif, ithar. Ithar means giving preference to others. يُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. They give preference to others even though they themselves may be in a loss. We know the stories of the companions are abound in this particular regard. At one occasion, the person was in need and had some water. So he said, no, my companion is greater in need. The companion said, no, but my other companion is greater in need. So much so that when they went right around, they came back to the first person he had already was martyred and passed on. That's the idea of giving preference to others. And this is one of the noble qualities that we should try and imbibe within ourselves. These were the quality of the Ansar and the Muhajirun. وَاتِّبَاعُ السُنَّةِ. A good quality is to follow the Sunnah. وَالْإِسْتِقَامَةِ. To be consistent. And this is one of the famous qualities that we always hear about. Our scholars say that without consistency, progress is impossible. So consistency, and if you look at our elders, they used to have a great degree of consistency in whatever they used to do. Great degree of consistency. And in every aspect of their life. I believe some people, they, I hope the term is right, but I think the Malay term is a banguru. There's the term banguru. Like somebody bangurus you a hotel. So in other words, he comes to hotel. So what happens, he's so consistent that no matter what personality may come to another mosque, he say, nee, ek banguru. They were very consistent, and with consistency also comes that type of sincerity. Look, I'm making my 20 units of prayer in Ramadan at night here. No matter who might be in another mosque, me, I'm here. It talks to that degree of consistency. And even in life, if you want to achieve something, you must be consistent with it. Therefore, the Prophet ﷺ says, the best of actions is خَيْرُ الْأَمَلِ مَا دِيمَ عَلَيْهِ وَإِنْ قَلَّ. The best of actions are those that are done consistently, even if it's a little. And the famous story of Abu al-Qasim, Junayd al-Baghdadi, when he said, al-istiqama fawqa al-karama, that being consistent is greater than a paranatural phenomenon. So to consistently do something is of a greater virtue than, like me jumping on the carpet and flying. And Allah SWT knows that's best. So istiqama. Wal-iqtisad fi al-ibada wal-ma'isha. Al-iqtisad, balance. Al-iqtisad, balance. Fil ibadah, in your worship, wal ma'isha, and in your living. Whatever you do in balance. When you worship, if ever like if extremity were allowed in something and considered to be good, it would be extremity in worship. But extremity even in worship is frowned upon. Even in worship. There's a narration which says Allah doesn't go bored until you become bored. So overexertion when it comes to acts of worship is not fulfilling obligations. Like performing Fajr on time is not an overexertion. That is what we're supposed to be doing. But overexertion, extremities in terms of worship, is Prophet came in with advice that you fast every day, don't fast every day. But some of the companions would say, I can manage, but later in their life they would regret and say, I should have taken the advice of the Prophet. The quickest way to any way is the middle way. So being oscillating between extremities is a bad quality, and the good quality is balancing whatever you do. Balance. The quickest way is the middle way. Forward.
So obviously, balance, like if you among people that recite the Quran every day, the Khatam every day, then if you recite one verse a day, you're not going to be balanced. You're going to be on the conservative side, or you're going to underperform. So isn't balance like in the audience that you are in, or the company that you're in?
In other words, like relative.
Yeah.
Balance is relative to like something else. I don't know how to answer the question.
And it's a good thing, obviously. Like, you among people that are doing a lot of good, you're also going to try to do a lot of good, but it might not be balanced. If you compare it with, let's say, other people in a different city or a different community.
When I look at the concept of balance, then like what first comes to my mind is not balance in relation to somebody else. It's like balance in relation to yourself and to your your set of actions. So balance within yourself would be, for example, like the story we mentioned about Abu Darda and Salman al-Farsi. So when Salman al-Farsi came to his brother, because they were brothers, the Prophet paid them together. So then he found that Darda, Abu Darda's wife, was unkept. She was unkept. So he said to her that, why is it that I find you in this state? So he says, your brother, referring to Abu Darda, has no interest in worldly matters. In other words, like an ascetic. And so she considers herself as a worldly matter. And he's looking at it as a worldly matter. The Prophet says that the entire world is a benefit, fleeting benefit, and the best fleeting benefit is a pious wife. But she was unkept. Salman commented on this. And so he said, okay. So Abu Darda, okay, he was fasting also. So Abu Darda offered Salman something to eat. So Salman said, I'm not going to eat until you eat. So he had to break his fast, if my memory serves me correctly. At night, when they wanted to go sleep, so he made provisions for Salman to sleep. So then Abu Darda stood up and Salman forced him to sleep. And only in the latter part of the night did Salman allow Abu Darda to stand up and pray. Now you can imagine Abu Darda, my brother, is coming to my house, forced me to break my fast. And then normally I spend the entire night in the night vigil, and he hasn't allowed me to do that. He goes to the Prophet to complain. So the Prophet says to him that your brother Salman is right. لِبَدْنِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ. Your body has a right over you. وَلِأَهْلِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ. And your family that's unkept now because you don't show an interest in her, so she's unkept. So she also has a right over you, and you're not fulfilling that right. إِنَّ لِجَسَدِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ وَإِنَّ لِأَهْلِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ. That your body has a right over you and your family has a right over you, so fulfill those rights. So he was worshipping, Abu Darda was worshipping, but there was an imbalance in his worship. In other words, one way of looking at it as imbalance, you're doing one thing, but everything else was falling out of sync. You with me? So that's the way I understand balance, al-iqtisad. Balance in terms of what you are doing, and balance would almost guarantee consistency in what you're doing. And then look, here we're just mentioning the quality. But later on they will mention the quality, how to acquire the quality, what to compromise the quality, and they will have a very analytical breakdown of it. But what comes to mind now would be balance really is in relation to yourself, your own balance. So you've got to, and life is a balancing act. You've got to balance so many things. And you can never really, it's difficult to, it's an achievement to maintain that balance between work, between family, between study, and the Prophet ﷺ, he was very structured in that particular way, that you couldn't fault him in terms of imbalance. In other words, doing something at the expense of something else which should have been done. He had complete balance in his life in giving everybody their due. So I'm thinking that balance would be like, for now, individual pursuit of my own balance. And everybody's balance is going to be different. Like, for example, if you're unmarried, by virtue of being unmarried, it means that it's not so difficult for you to balance things. If you're unmarried and you're working and you're studying, then you must maintain that work-study balance. The day you get married, then it's work, study, and your family. So those are the type of balance, Wallahu Alam, that we're talking about. So al-iqtisad, everything in due measure, everything in balance, Wallahu Alam. So fil ibadati wal ma'isha, both in terms of worship and in terms of living, everything must be in balance. You go for holiday, you can't go for holiday for 30 days of the month. You take 3 days and you go for holiday. Or, imbalance would be you always on holiday, like that. وَالْإِشْتِغَالِ بِعَيْبِ النَّاسِ and عَيْبِ النَّاسِ. A good quality is to preoccupy yourself with your own faults as opposed to the faults of others. وَالْإِنصَافِ, to be just. وَفِعْلِ الرُّخَصِ أَحْيَانًا. This was quite interesting for me. وَفِعْلِ الرُّخَصِ أَحْيَانًا. So to busy yourself with your own faults and not the faults of others, to be just, and to avail yourself to rukhas. Rukhsa refers to a dispensation. So to avail yourself sometimes to dispensations. So we see on the one side that if a person follows every dispensation, he's always looking for the shortcut out. That's considered to be a bad quality. Like whenever every dispensation that is available to him, he takes that. So, if you're a true slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you want to manifest your servitude in what manner? In an optimal manner. So the optimal manner sometimes is doing the most difficult thing. Like Ali Radha says that, what is the most beloved action to you? He says, in midday, to be on horseback, out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the summer months, on an extremely hot day. Why is that? Because to the degree of difficulties that subject myself to for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it manifests my servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the most beloved action to me. So we know that availing yourself to every dispensation, every shortcut, I must get the shortcut out. That is the problem. It's considered to be a spiritual ailment. But at the same time also, a good quality is to at times avail yourself to the dispensations. In other words, for you to have that latitude and flexibility, that when a dispensation is presented to you, that you follow through on the dispensation. Sometimes, like the Prophet said to Umar, that the idea of, because the Quranic verse gives you the impression that you can only shorten the prayer when you are at travel and you fear the enemy. So then you shorten the prayer from 4 to 2. So then a successor came to Umar and said to him, look, I'm reading the verse and I understand that you can shorten وإذا ضربتم في الأرض فليس عليكم جناح أن تقصروا من الصلاة إن خفتم أن يفتنكم الذين كفروا. If you fear, you know that if I'm going to pray 4 units of prayer while I'm busy with my prayer, then the enemy is going to attack me. So then what do? You must pray, but you shorten the prayer to 2. But now what's happening is we're traveling in the earth, but there's no fear. The entire Arabian Peninsula has basically come under the Islamic control, so there's no fear, there's no enemy. Can we still now? So Umar said to him, I asked the Prophet ﷺ the same question. So what did the Prophet ﷺ say? Ya Umar, sadaqatun. This is a charity. فَقَبَلُوا صَدَقَةً. This is a charity from Allah, dispensation. He's made it easy for you, so accept that. So sometimes, for example, we're in a group, we're traveling together. Now there is yourself, you have this whole strict thing that, you're going to make 4 rakahs no matter where you are. But now you're traveling with a group, everybody's making 2. So a good quality in that particular instance would be for you to put your superlative sense of piety in your pocket, and everybody's making 2. Why do you now have to stand up by making 4? So a good quality at times, when there is a rukhsa, and everybody else is applying the rukhsa, Bismillah. It's actually considered a good quality. I travel with sometimes with the muftis, the big muftis. But I'm a bush crook, but they call me a buzruk. So I'm a bush crook with the muftis. So now the muftis, they put me in front. They say, no, you stand in front. Why? Because they know they're Hanafi, I'm Shafi'i. Then they know I'm going to make, I'm going to make 2 rakahs and I'm going to I'm going to join the salat. So then they follow me because there's a rukhsa, dispensation, and they are availing themselves to that. You follow me? So it's actually, it's considered, in light of what we're studying, is considered a good thing. So again, we're talking about the children and extremities. For every dispensation that there is in the kitab, you follow that one. That's bad. Then you don't follow no matter what the dispensation is, no. You are prim and proper and 100% you do the right thing. That's also bad. You must have some easiness in you and follow that, those rukhas. No. And we find this is the quality of our big ulama. Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda was a great alim. It's easy to remember his name also, Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda. He was, when Imam Hudayfi came to South Africa for the first time, Imam Hudayfi, I think it was 1994. Anis, you have a recollection? 1994. He didn't come to Cape Town, he came to Joburg. But it was actually like an official visit. So when he came to Madrasa Zakaria at the time. So when he came for the first official visit of an Imam from the Haramain was Imam Hudayfi. He came for the first graduation in Darul Ulum Zakaria. First graduation, 1994. So they came with the whole state visits, they came with the whole cavalry. So the students, we had to stand outside of the madrasa like in lines and welcome them. Give them a warm welcome, a nice welcome. And with him was Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda. He's world renowned, Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda. He was from Aleppo. And he has a nice book also, it's called Islamic Manners. Maybe I should bring that kitab also with me, because it talks about etiquette in every situation. How to, like that, lovely etiquette. For example, one etiquette image always stick with me is that, when you leave the house, so you're the Amir of the house, right? And if you didn't have to tell everybody where you're going, you're the Amir of the house, they must tell you where they go. But Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda explains that when you're going somewhere, the proper etiquette is to inform the family, not that they're going to keep tabs on you, so they basically know where you are in case something happens, so then they can, they can contact you. Or if you say you're going to the masjid, now 3 hours gone by, they would have now expected you at home. Because if you went to the masjid, but if they know maybe you're going to visit Haji Fulan and 3 hours go by, they're not going to worry, because when you buy Haji Fulan and then you do spend that amount of time. So Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda has a very nice book in that regard. So Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda was a Hanafi. We were told that he was a Hanafi, but he would avail himself to the rukhsa of the Shafi'i madhab of joining between 2 prayers when they're traveling. You're with me? So this, as opposed to taking away from the stature of the person, what does it do? It actually endears him, And if you, maybe in your family, they consider you, Allah give us a tawfiq, they consider you to be, mashallah, you are the salih. So Haji said the word salih. You are the salih, like for example, Anis now. in the family. But now, if a niece does something that's like almost like a rukhsa, what does it do? Is it going to, is it going to bring you down in the estimate, or it's going to raise you? It's going to raise you in the estimate of the family. Why? It's a good quality. So sometimes when there's a dispenser, you are, Mr. Strict, alhamdulillah, fine. But sometimes, in light of this quality, you're saying that fi'lu rukhas ahyanan, sometimes that you avail yourself to the dispensation is considered to be a good thing. It doesn't detract from your, and sometimes it's good for our own nafs to do that. Because what does your nafs want to do? The strict thing now. And maybe it has a reason for doing it also, it may be not very divine in terms of its nature. So it's good also to break yourself in these instances for that to happen. Wallahu a'lam. والاعتقاد مع التسليم والافتقار الاختياري. Believing firmly in Allah while submitting to the law of Allah. And then the unique thing here that iftiqar, to submit to Allah but willingly. Look, at the end of the day, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. You only operating on the volition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But internally, when you make that volitional submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's a different level altogether. Whether you like it or not, you are subject to the volition of Allah, to the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you internally willfully submit to that particular volition, that's something else. So it's considered to be a very good quality. It's like when you ask somebody to do something and they willfully do it for you. Children, for example. There's a big difference between, look, you're going to wash up the dishes whether you like it or not. But when the child does it with a willingness, it's very different from the child being forced to do it. Likewise, we are subject to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when we do it willingly, then there's a beauty to it. وَالْإِنفَاقِ بِغَيْرِ تَقْدِيرٍ, and to spend. My understanding of taqdeerin would be without miserliness, wallahu alam. So, to spend, Allahumma a'ti munfiqan khalafan, every day an angel calls out that the person who spends, oh Allah grant him a displacement of that which he spends. And the other alternate part of the wording is when there's a need to spend and we don't spend, then the angel calls out, Allahumma a'ti mumsikan talafa. That the person who doesn't spend when there's a need to spend, then the angel calls out for him to be distracted. So sometimes, when we withhold our wealth, then it's a cause of the destruction of that wealth. Very paradoxical. But when we spend our wealth, it's an opportunity for the preservation of that particular wealth. Now, وَإِنفَاقُ الْمَالِ صِيَانَةِ الْعِرْضِ, to spend money in order to protect your honor. وَالْأَمْرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, calling towards good. وَتَجَنُّبُ الشُّبْهَةِ, staying away from grey areas. Shubha. It talks about the hadith, إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنٌ وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنٌ. Halal is clear and haram is clear. وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ. Between the two there are matters which is referred to prophetically as mushtabihat, as grey areas. So to stay away from the grey areas. If you're not sure, then rather leave it off. But the word mushtabih, it has like a technical definition to it. And perhaps we can mention it when it comes further in the book, and we can mention it again. And I think this is such an important framework issue as Muslims. As Muslims, there are only three things: halal, haram, and mushtabihat. Anything that you can think about, it can only fit into one of these three categories. And here they're saying the grey area, stay away from. So what finds itself in a grey area? What do we mean by something is a grey area? Like many people, they consider things as grey area. It's grey to them, but it's actually very white or black to ulama. And riba is not a grey area. Riba is haram. It's a black area. Taking a second wife is not a grey area. It's a white area. It's completely halal. You might have, because of your Western sensibilities, you might have an issue about it, but from the Sharia perspective, it's a white area. There's no question about it being halal. What I mean, jaiz. I'm not saying you must, but it's halal. So what is halal? I found very interesting what ulama said, because everything in your life can only be halal, haram, or mushtabihat, if you look at it from this perspective. So what is halal? What is haram? Haram is maybe easy to explain what haram is. Haram is something that there is a quality that prescribes it. في ذاته صفة محرمة. It's such a thing that intrinsically there's a quality that renders it impermissible. For example, wine. Wine has a quality of intoxication and causes it to be impermissible. That's it. Or it may be permissible, but the way you acquire it is impermissible. For example, toilet paper. But now you go to the contention example. I know it's a contention example, but you might as well to keep the brothers awake. You go to the hotel and there was like 3 toilet rolls there for your usage. But now you only used one and then you put the other 2 in your bag and bring it home. So who said toilet paper is haram? Toilet paper is halal. But the mode of acquisition. So something can be halal in the beginning, but the way you acquire it, becomes a bit of a problem. Becomes a bit of a problem. So that is haram. Haram is something which, that thing in and of itself, it has a quality that renders it impermissible, like wine. Or it may be permissible, but the way you acquire it is going to be haram. That is haram, finished. And then halal is what? Halal is something which doesn't have a quality which makes it impermissible. For example, the smoothie super sweet, mint flavored. That's halal. Why is it halal? Because it doesn't have any quality which renders it haram. And my mode of acquisition also is completely halal. Ali Sab gave it to me. So halal and tayyiba. Bismillah. So now we know what halal is, we know what haram is. But now what's mushtabihat? Mushtabihat is something that you find is a proof that pulls it towards being halal, and there's another proof which pulls it towards being haram. So now you don't know. And those are the things that the ulama have differed about, whether it is halal or whether it is haram. There's quite a few things like that that the ulama would talk about. So now these things that you read into the thing and you find that, okay, there's the one proof says it's permissible, another proof says it's impermissible. I'm thinking of a very simple example now. A non-refundable deposit. A non-refundable deposit. The ulama differ about it. So I give you I tell you I'm going to buy the phone from you. Then I give you a deposit. And if I take the phone, then that deposit forms part of the price. If I don't take the phone tomorrow, then I forfeit that amount. So some ulama says permissible. They quote a hadith in that regard. Other ulama say not permissible, and they also quote a hadith in that regard. You with me? So now this whole thing of a non-refundable deposit, from the one side, it looks haram. From the other side, it looks halal. So now what is mushtabiyah? That's now a grey area. So a good quality is considered that, when things are grey, rather stay away from it. And it is incident dependent, because sometimes you have something which we consider, like the Shafi madhab, bayul ina, consider it to be halal. But there's a very strong proof that pulls it to the other side. And sometimes you have it's not really a strong proof that pulls it to the other side. You follow? So our ulama say, particularly when there's a strong proof, there's contending proofs, but the strong proof is pulling it to the haram side, then particularly that type of thing, it's recommended that you actually stay away from it. So when something is in a grey area, good quality is for somebody, when something is in a grey area, that I'd rather play it safe, I stay away from it. So that is considered to be a good quality, and Allah knows best. But I just wanted to, because sometimes for certain people, very black areas are considered to be grey. No, it's not, it's black. Like riba, for example, there's no question about riba being haram.
So, Mawla, like in business, obviously, there's a lot of times it is very speculative deals. Like you buy something because you think you're going to make a lot of money, or you'll sell it tomorrow, or so you buy a lot of it. So you're speculating. You're not actually in it for doing business properly and waiting to sell it, etc. How is that perceived in terms of the grey area aspect?
buy something, speculation is not the core. The core of the contract will determine whether the contract is valid or invalid. So, for example, speculation in and of itself is not something which is impermissible. I speculate that there's going to be a demand for a certain item. Then I buy it with the intention of selling it to make a quick buck. That in and of itself, the scholars generally don't consider it to be impermissible. Because the question would be, what is the quality that would render that impermissible? Remember, in order to consider something haram, there must be a characteristic that renders it impermissible. What is the characteristic here? I'm paying a price, I know the price, I know what I'm getting in lieu of the price, and as far as the sale is concerned, it is valid. I may be, projecting into the future that, look here, I'm going to buy this for this price, but I'm able to sell it and turn it over quickly and make a profit. So speculation also entails that. It moves from there to like gambling, then that is that's a different case altogether. For example, if you buy and sell shares, the whole thing about shares is that if you want to see a return on the share, it's a long-term investment, isn't it? So, but now what happens is a person wants to buy a share and sell it quick, and he's operating very speculatively. He's doing that on his own risk because he's going to benefit. But in as far as the actual sale, the buying and selling of it is concerned, it is my understanding that that should be permissible. But if you ask me, speculating that is akin to gambling, that's maybe we can say it's like akin to gambling, but you can't say it's gambling, because gambling is a zero-sum game. Gambling is like the lottery. And this, in terms of the structure here, cannot be equated to that. Wallahu a'lam. وَتَجَنُّبِ شُبَهٍ. So a good quality would be that if something is a grey area, then we steer clearly on. وَاتِّقَاءُ مَا لَا بَأْسَ بِهِ لِمَا بِهِ بَأْسٌ. Staying away from something which is not problematic, out of fear of falling into something which is problematic. So there's a very famous from the scholars that something which is permissible for you to do, but you don't do it out of fear that you're going to fall into something permissible, and this is impermissible. And there's a lot of examples in today's time. Is it permissible to go to the mall? Absolutely. When they took exception to the Prophet ﷺ, how can this be a messenger? He walks into the marketplace, like we walk into the marketplace. There's nothing wrong with walking in the marketplace. But we know that the most beloved place to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the masajid, and the most disliked place to Allah, the marketplace, is because the potential for vice there is so great. So a person says, look, I'm rather not going. And is there a problem with going? No, there's no problem with going. But the person is apprehensive that if I were to go, then I'm going to fall into something which is haram. So this is also considered to be a good quality. Wallahu a'lam. وَاصْلَاحُ ذَاتِ الْبَيْنِ. To reform the relationships amongst brothers. إِصْلَاحُ ذَاتِ الْبَيْنِ. Two people aren't doing well to one another, then you just say, Anis gives you salams. And then I go to Ali Sahib and say, Anis gives you salams. And I go to Anis and say, Ali gives you salams. So, but nobody gave nobody salams. Tomorrow I take a present, I give it to Anis from Ali. And then I go to Ali and I give him a present from Anis. And Islahu Dhatil Bayn. To overlook. We come out of the month of Ramadan now, and I'm busy teaching on another level on the seerah. The Prophet ﷺ, in this regard, they say al-aqarib, family, kal-aqarib. Aqarib means scorpions. So aqarib means family. So in Arabic there's a saying that aqarib, your family, kal-aqarib. So they just change the hamza to an ayn. But it's a dangerous change because aqarib means one who is close. And aqarib with the ayn means a scorpion. So there's an Arab saying that goes that family is like scorpions. You know, they bite you the whole time. So now what happens, you say, I'm done. Because they like, scorpions keep on biting you. But really, if we look to the example of the Prophet ﷺ, he's the level and the degree of his tolerance the degree of tolerance for misconduct from family and foe alike is just incredible. So if ever you can look at all the verses and there's lots of justifications for all of these things, but ultimately if we place the Prophet ﷺ in front of us as an example, then he did have, we're not saying that the other person is right, but we're saying despite the other person being wrong, for you to have the degree of clemency to tolerate that and almost like overlook it and still maintain a good relationship, that is very difficult for us. So Islahu Dhat al-Bayn is considered to be such a good quality, and it's very difficult. But at least we can make a niyyah, inshallah, that Allah facilitate that we can play a pivotal role in terms of joining our ties and our relations. وَإِمَاطَةُ الْأَذَىٰ عَنِ الطَّرِيقِ, removing harm from the path. Very easy for us to do, Jamaatul Muslim. A believer, wherever he is, he's of benefit. He comes into the masjid, you see something lying there, and what's name? You pick it up, if you recycle it. You must go in the dustbin, you put it in the dustbin. If it can go to the compost heap, you put on the compost heap. A believer is always in the khidmah of Allah, is in the khidmah of the khalq. Always, all the time. Every moment a believer, wherever he walks, he's walking with light and he's benefiting. So when the Prophet is telling you the lowest form of iman is imatatul adhan al-tariq. When and this goes from here home now to the what's name, I'm sure you're going to see papers in the road there. Pick up the papers, recycle it, remove the harm from the street. Your neighbor's gate is open, close it. You can. Banana peels is lying in our roads. Nachi peels lying in our roads. You can see now there's one day by Haji, I'm in front of him that always, I see now it doesn't flood there, but if you see something going towards the drain, pick it up. Imatatul adhan al-tariq. These are easy things that we can do that's going to make part of our spiritual being. Wal istisharati. A good quality is istishara, where you take counsel. Make mashura. Not I know everything, make mashwara. Wal istikhara. These are the two things if you want to be, لا خاب من استخار ولا ندم من استشار. A person who asks Allah for goodness, he will never fail in whatever he's doing. And if you will never be remorseful, nadim, be sad, if you make mashwara. So these are wal adab, good etiquette, wal ihtiram, respecting, wal ijlal li afadil al-bashari wal azminati wal amkina, and to aggrandize. Part of the good qualities to aggrandize afadil, the virtuous of men, amongst men. So part of good etiquette, not good etiquette but spirituality, is that we aggrandize, for example, the Imam of the Masjid. We have great respect for him. Wal azmina, Friday, adhan time, Thursday night. People even before no watching TV on a Thursday night. Up until Jummah on Friday. So that is respecting the time. Wal amkina, respecting the place. We spoke about the masjid is a sacred place. So yes, you can do a lot of things here, but you must respect the places as well. So respecting high people, high places and high times is part of good spirituality. وَإِدْخَالُ السُّرُورَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِ, causing happiness to your Muslim brother. وَالْإِسْتِرْشَادِ وَالْإِرْشَادِ بِتَرْبِيَةٍ وَتَعْلِيمٍ. If you need help, to ask for help. Istirshad. And then, so if you need help, you ask for help. It's a good quality, it's not a weakness. And then if somebody is asking you for guidance, for you to guide them by nurturing in the particular. Or if Shah is salam, spreading the salam. That's one quality, spreading the salam. And then to start with, for you to be the one to greet. وَإِكْرَامِ الْجَارِ, to honor your neighbor. وَإِجَابَةِ السَّائِلِ. Somebody asks you for something, if you're able to, then provide it for him. وَالْإِعْطَاء قَبْلَ السُّؤَالِ. You know somebody has a need, but now you're waiting for them to ask. Before they even ask, if you fulfill the need, Imam Ghazali rahimahullah says that if your brother has to come to a point where he has to ask you, then you failed him. Because if you were his true brother, you would have realized his need before he made his need apparent to you. Sometimes you can be so in tune and aware of the needs of your brother that before you even ask, you actually realize what his need is and you give it to him. وَاسْتِكْثَارِ قَلِيلِ الْخَيْرِ مِنَ الْغَيْرِ. When somebody else does something good to you, you make much of it. Somebody gives you a sweet in the masjid, subhanAllah. You're too kind, man. I don't know how to thank you, man. Istikthar, qalil khayr min al-ghayr. To make much of a little bit of goodness from somebody else. But the opposite of that would be وَاحْتِقَارِ عَظِيمِهِ مِن نَفْسِهِ. But when you do somebody else a big favor, you must think nothing of it. So somebody does a small thing to you, you make the world of it. But when you do a big thing for somebody else, you think nothing of it. It's nothing, man. And these are very, very, very good qualities. وَبَذْلِ الْجَاءِ وَالْجُهْدِ. Somebody comes to وَبَذْلِ الْجَاهِ وَالْجُهْدِ. To somebody has a need and you actually exert yourself in terms of fulfilling that need. If Allah SWT has honored you that you're in a position that people have needs, and every day when needs come in, people must, this, that and the other, you must feel very honored that Allah SWT has afforded you the opportunity to be able to make such an effort with the needs of others are fulfilled. May Allah not deprive us of this ni'mah ever. There's one scholar, his son, Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayyan, his son told him one day, his young son told him one day, can't we just take off one day and not be engaged in fulfilling the needs of others? So his father said to him, take this arrogance out of your heart. Allah's put you in a position where you're able to help people, and now you close the door to people. So badlul juhd, to do your utmost in whatever circumstances you are. That never, if there's a person that has a need, a genuine need, and you're in a position to help them, to never be a barrier between them and the fulfillment of that particular need. Allah will increase you. One of the hadith talks about that Allah gives you a budget, Anis, every year. But if the government gave you a budget and you underspend that budget, next year they're going to give you more, they give you less. There's a hadith that says Allah does the same to you. Allah gives you a budget. You spend that budget, Allah says, hey, subhanAllah, I gave you too small a budget, you need a bigger budget. Next year Allah give you a bigger budget. But if He gives you a budget and you don't spend it on the budget, Allah says, hey, no, this guy I'm giving him with less. Give it to somebody else. No. And then wal-jah. You contact and the person comes to you and says, can you speak to so and so to organize something for me? So it's a good quality to spend of your good reputation to see to the needs of others. That person, shame, is a pichara. If he's going to ask people, they're going to close it. They don't even give him an audience, but they will give you an audience. So you go and you say, look here, so and so has a great need, please man, make some arrangements for him. Then Allah SWT will. Somebody needs a loan. This guy's good for his money, but nobody's going to give him a loan. So you take him to someone and say, lend him the money, I'll stand as a surety or whatever the case may be. Lot of khayr, man. وَالْبِشْرِ وَالْبَشَاشَةِ. And to smile, وَالْبَشَاشَةِ, and always have an open face with people. Not to always be a frowning face, Always try to come to people and have a smiling face. Now, وَالْبِشْرِ وَالْبَشَاشَةِ. And it's infectious, because if you start smiling, everybody around you also smiles. But if you frown, then it's infectious behavior. That if you do that, I was giving the Jummah on Friday, so there's one Haji, one of the chairman, sitting on a chair. So he was looking at me, he was smiling the whole time. And I'm a little bit anxious, I'm going to give the talk. So I had to start talking by this fellow smiling at me. So I said, he's smiling at me, it's causing me to smile, it's causing me to relax also. And that's why the Prophet says, don't consider any good act as insignificant, even if you meet your brother with a smile. And as human beings, the anthropology of it, the human behavioral aspect of it, is that we become affected by other people's behavior. So like that, so if you want to affect other people's behavior, my father rahimahullah used to say a ajib thing. He says, you know, when you come home, for example, and you know your wife is upset with you and she has good reason to be upset with you, what do? You make as-salam like loud, you know, and from your heart also, and you give a broad smile. At least it will help in disarming her. A little bit at least, even if she's not going to get off a peachy, but I mean, it's going to help at least. So, because human behavior is infectious like that. You must try it out. Somebody calls you and they're speaking like loudly, just respond softly. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How can I help you today? Automatically, the levels, the volume of the person who's speaking is going to come down. So, this is very good qualities. وَالتَّوَاضُعُ being humble, وَالتَّوْبَةُ seeking repentance, وَالتَّعَاوُنُ عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى to assist with good and Allah consciousness. وَالتُّؤَدُ وَالتَّأَنِّي to be cool, calm and collected. This is part of أَسْتَخْشَى. So cool, calm and collectedness is a quality, that of the believers. It's a good quality to have. The quality of restraint. Something happens now, somebody, and I think mashallah, what to do is we have our own anecdotes. Anis can write a history book about it in terms of, the guy comes and we want to sort him out, but sometimes you must sort him out, Anis, but sometimes also be cool, calm and collected. There's the quality of a believer. The Prophet ﷺ, there's an incentive to do something, but sometimes you wait one whole month to react to something. Look on the same side also, when you need to do something and you don't do it, and the opportunity is lost, then we're all to blame for that. But sometimes the circumstances, we have our wits about us and we're a bit cool, calm and collected, and that's a good quality. Now, my father, rahimahullah, he was too cool, calm and collected. He's like a deal of a lifetime he's going to as a businessman. He's buy from the auctions and so on. So now this deal is a deal of a lifetime. He's stealing this thing from the guy. But it will not show on his face. Like you and I may be sitting around, we'll jump up and down, because it's a good deal. But now because you're going to give your game away also. If you can't keep yourself, like in Urdu they say, जोश के मौका में होश में रहना चाहिए. When it's at a time where, there's a cause for excitement and for you to be, like all excited, at that point in time, you must bring about a calmness to yourself. Are you with me? The example I give is a person getting married, so his wife asks for, okay, I'll take 100 rand dowry. It's before he got married. So what happens is, he's in a state of joy. He's fired up. He says, 100 rand, subhanAllah, for you, no. You at least 100,000. After he got married, he says, leave 100 rand. Leave 100 rand. I should have given you 1 rand. Even that is now asking too much. So Josh will come in. Who told you to go overboard now by saying 100 and 100,000 rand? Then you have to change the story afterwards. No. So always to try our level best to be cool and calm. وتدبير منزل. These good qualities which ulama mentioned as ajib. Sometimes we don't associate many of these qualities to Allah now. 20 past. 1 minute. Okay. So the last quality is tadbirul manzil. Tadbirul manzil means managing your home. It's considered to be a good quality. Tadbirul manzil. My son was explaining to me something about the philosophy and so on, what it's all about. But part of the philosophy was that managing the home. In other words, your home must be structured. Tadbirul manzil. So your house must be structured. And structuring your house today's time unfortunately requires a lot. Maintaining your home, seeing that everything is run properly, everything is in order, everything is working, everything is nice, everything is on its place. It doesn't look like a rummage or everything is dirmakar and so. That shouldn't be. Tadbirul manzil if you manage your house, and this was the quality of our old people, that you every year, they used to have certain maintenance things that must be done ever so regularly to maintain the house. So tadbirul manzil, to keep the house, in order, is considered to be a good quality. So Allah grant us the tawfiq. And today also we didn't really, I said last week we're going to start with the Aqlaniyya, but inshallah next week we start with the Aqlaniyya, Liberaliyya. بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى. وجزاكم الله خير الجزاء والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. سبحان الله.